My wife, who had always been very dependent on me, suddenly said she had to go on a business trip for half a year. I went to find her, only to see her hugging her first love. At that moment, I was holding her late-stage cancer diagnosis. I called her to ask where she was. My wife sounded very impatient. What else can I do besides work? I'm busy. Don't bother me. Can't you understand what I'm saying? I told her. You're sick. It's late-stage cancer. Go home immediately. My wife hung up angrily and left a message. Alastair Whitfield, you're really something. How dare you use those words to make me come back? Don't even think about it. I'm not coming back. I turned and walked away, quietly putting away her terminal cancer diagnosis. The man I saw with my wife, Serafina Delaney, was Thaddeus. A rival who was always busy with work had developed an affair with my wife. Before leaving, I secretly took a few photos. Upon returning home, the doctor called again. I was constantly reminded to take Serafina to the hospital. Otherwise, she might only have 6 months left to live. Thinking of this, I called Serafina again, but the call didn't go through. After calling 99 times with no answer, I hung up and began drafting the divorce agreement. Just then, my phone notified me of a bank account transaction, seeing the money in the account rapidly decreasing. I immediately froze the card. Serafina's call came through immediately. Alastair, what's going on? You promised to take care of me. You know I meant to take care of you. I shouted at her, but every single transaction is at a men's clothing store. That shirt costs tens of thousands of dollars. I don't even think it's worth buying. But you're willing to spend money on Thaddeus Lockwood. Serafina's voice grew much softer upon hearing my words. Oh, honey, I was just buying it for a client. I'm in sales. I have to please clients to close deals. Don't be so stingy. I interrupted her. Serafina, I saw it. After a moment of silence, Serafina hung up the phone. I continued writing the divorce agreement. The house and car are all my premarital property. I won't give them to her. I didn't realize I had fallen asleep. In my dream, I felt a warm, wet sensation on my face. When I opened my eyes, Serafina was lying on top of me, kissing me. I pushed her away and wiped my face in disgust. Serafina looked very upset. Alastair, what's wrong? Why are you treating me like this? I understand now. You must have misunderstood me and Thaddeus. Husband, we're not what you think we are. I suddenly felt maybe I was overthinking things, so I quietly watched Serafina to see how she would explain. He said Thaddeus has cancer, and the doctor said he only has 6 months left. He said his biggest regret was breaking up with me, so I can't help but care about him. Thaddeus has cancer, but just last week, the company's physical exam showed Thaddeus was in perfect health. I told Serafina all this. She tilted her head and looked at me with a hint of hostility in her eyes. Alastair, I never thought you'd be this kind of person. You have any compassion at all? Would Thaddeus use something like this to deceive me? He's not that kind of person. She doesn't trust me. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to speak my mind. Serafina, let's break up. Break up. Serafina's face was filled with disbelief. You want to divorce me over this, Alastair? I always knew you had someone else. Tell me, have you been with Isolde Harrington all along? The Isolde she mentioned was my intern, and there was nothing more than a professional relationship between us. I just didn't want to explain anymore, before I could even mention how to divide the property. Serafina opened the door and pulled Thaddeus, who was waiting outside, into the room. You'd better give up the idea of divorce. I will never divorce you. Since you know, I won't hold back. Thaddeus will stay at home for the next 6 months, and I will take care of him personally. Serafina spoke firmly. After 3 years of marriage, Serafina had never gone to work or done any housework before her business trip. For Thaddeus, I'm willing to do anything. Get out. I pointed at Thaddeus and said. Thaddeus obediently walked toward the door, trying to comfort Serafina. Serafina, don't argue with Alastair. I'm almost gone. It doesn't matter where I am. Don't let me ruin your relationship. Serafina's already gloomy expression grew even darker. I underestimated Thaddeus. This guy is just as skilled at flirting as any girl. Serafina wrapped her arm around Thaddeus and said, "You can't leave. If you have to go, let Alistair go first." I couldn't help but laugh and remind Serafina of something. "Serafina, don't forget, this is the house I bought before we got married." Serafina's eyes widened as she finally realized the truth. The next moment, she rushed to the bathroom and vomited, pressing her hands tightly against her abdomen. I asked hoarsely, "Serafina, are you pregnant?" "Yes, 3 months." "Alistair, this is your child." Serafina seemed to have uncovered my secret. After answering me, she immediately had Thaddeus bring her luggage inside. 3 months ago, Serafina and I were living a very sweet life. This child is indeed mine. But why did he have to appear at this moment? This child isn't meant to stay. I stood in front of Serafina and said to her with difficulty, "Serafina, you're sick. You need to see a doctor. This child can't stay." Serafina slapped me hard across the face. "Alistair, how long do you plan to keep this up? Do you want our child to be lost? It was you who begged me to let you get pregnant earlier." She walked into the bedroom, threw my blanket on the sofa and said, "Thaddeus, I don't want to see you. If you don't want to leave, you can sleep here." She then took Thaddeus's arm and walked into my master bedroom together. Perhaps because I was too disappointed, I didn't rush in to make things worse. I just took a few photos and sat on the sofa to continue writing the divorce agreement. The next morning, the scent woke me up. Serafina was busy in the kitchen wearing an apron, and my eyes welled up uncontrollably. In that moment, I truly understood who Serafina was. She saw me wake up and warmly invited me to eat, as if yesterday's unpleasantness had never happened. "Alistair, I learned this special dish just for you. Try it and see if you like it." She placed a piece of celery near my mouth, but I didn't move. Eating celery made me feel unwell. In the 3 years we'd been married, I'd never eaten celery. Serafina must have known this. I looked at the table. There were 3 dishes and a bowl of soup, either things I was allergic to or things I simply didn't like. This was what Serafina meant by wanting me to learn to cook. "You can eat on your own." I pushed Serafina away and stood up. "Alistair, don't be too much. I burned my hand while cooking for you." Serafina held the blister on her hand up to me. I smiled bitterly and said, "Since you made it for me, how come you didn't know I don't eat these dishes?" Thaddeus heard this and stood in front of Serafina. "Sorry, Alistair. Maybe Serafina was just thinking of me. Let me help you with something else." Serafina pushed Thaddeus back into his seat and turned her gaze back to me. "You're a healthy adult. Why are you arguing with someone who's sick?" I was about to speak when I received a call from a client asking me to meet them. I hurried out, only to realize at the entrance of the neighborhood that I'd forgotten a document. I hurried back home. As I walked into the living room, Serafina's voice came from the bedroom. "Don't worry, it's definitely your baby. Alistair and I have already taken precautions. I won't give him the child. You know that, right? You're still the one I love the most." In that moment, I felt a wave of panic wash over me, just as I was about to rush in and confront them. My rational mind pulled me back. Serafina hadn't gone for her prenatal checkup yet, so she probably didn't know her situation. I was curious about her reaction after finding out that Thaddeus had betrayed her. So I pretended I hadn't been there and closed the door. After meeting with the client, I went to the company to ask about Thaddeus. There were many employees at the company, and I only knew that his family background wasn't good, so he worked harder than others. Through the HR department, I learned that Thaddeus has a mother with late-stage cancer who needs a lot of money for treatment. He also has a father who drinks all day and only asks Thaddeus for money. "Alistair, let me tell you a secret. Thaddeus is already married." I was taken aback. The HR person rolled her eyes and said, "You probably didn't know, but Thaddeus always uses his looks to attract the attention of the women in our company. Once when I went back to my hometown, I saw him shopping with his wife and found out about it. His wife clearly looked like she was wealthy. I furrowed my brows and began to doubt Thaddeus' motives. Could he really be interested in Serafina? Just as I was thinking about it, I accidentally bumped into my intern, Isolde. I quickly apologized and picked up her phone that had fallen to the ground and handed it to her. But I noticed Thaddeus's name in the chat history on the screen. I furrowed my brows and stopped handing her the phone. Isolde saw that I was reading the messages where she had insulted Thaddeus and quickly explained, "Don't misunderstand me. I'm not the kind of person who talks behind others' backs. Really, Thaddeus is just unbearable." Isolde told me that Thaddeus had already married her cousin. Recently, her cousin's company had run into some trouble, and they discovered that Thaddeus was having an affair with someone else. Now Isolde's cousin was planning to divorce Thaddeus. So that's how it was. Just then, Thaddeus walked up to me. "Let's talk." I nodded and followed him to the cafe. Thaddeus cut straight to the point. "If you withdraw from the competition for the director position, I'll stop pursuing Serafina." "So you went through all this just for this position? Isn't Serafina your first love? You don't like her. Yet you pretended to be sick to deceive her." Thaddeus sneered. "What cancer? Only that foolish woman Serafina would believe that. Trading a position for marital happiness. How convenient." I picked up a cup of coffee and splashed it on his face, then slapped his face. "Thaddeus, does Gwendolyn Harrington know about the things you've been doing behind her back?" Thaddeus looked around and, seeing Gwendolyn wasn't nearby, felt slightly relieved. "You're quite capable. You even know about Gwendolyn. So what if I do? A woman on the brink of bankruptcy. What can she do about it?" "Gwendolyn is Thaddeus's wife," Thaddeus continued. "Serafina used to come from a wealthy family, but that was all in the past. After her parents passed away, the family fortune was depleted." It seemed Thaddeus still didn't understand. Looking at Thaddeus, who was unaware of the truth, I suppressed a smile and asked him, "What's the difference between Serafina divorcing her husband and being with you, and you getting this director position? You make it sound so easy," Thaddeus said angrily. "Serafina didn't divorce you and I have my own wife. How could we possibly be together? Then I'll let you have her." Gwendolyn's voice came from afar. She stood in front of Thaddeus and said, "Let's go. We'll get a divorce right now." Thaddeus smiled and said he didn't want to do that. Gwendolyn said, "I'm bankrupt. If you don't divorce her, you'll have to help me pay off the debt." This made Thaddeus rush to the Civil Affairs Bureau. "Wait a moment." I called out to Gwendolyn and Thaddeus and said, "Let's go together. I'll call Serafina." 3 hours later, the four of them met at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Since she had submitted the divorce application in advance, if everything went smoothly, they could obtain the divorce certificate today. Serafina hesitated at the entrance, unwilling to go inside. "Thaddeus, are you really sure you want to divorce me?" I nodded. Serafina's eyes were red, and Thaddeus stepped forward to comfort her softly, but Serafina rarely responded to him. At that moment, Gwendolyn and Thaddeus had already obtained the divorce certificate and came out from inside. Earlier, I had told Thaddeus that after Serafina and I divorced, she would receive $5 million. Upon hearing this, Thaddeus tried his best to persuade Serafina. "Serafina, did you really mean it when you said you loved me? You said that if Alistair was willing to divorce you, you would choose to be with me. Is that true?" Seeing Thaddeus tear up, Serafina finally followed me into the Civil Affairs Bureau. The moment we received the divorce certificate, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. But then, Serafina looked at me with eyes full of tenderness and said, "Husband, Thaddeus might not have much time left. Don't worry if he passes away. I'll remarry you, and the three of us can live happily together." I didn't say anything. I just handed Serafina a medical report. Seeing that Thaddeus's medical results showed he was in perfect health, she couldn't help but clench her teeth. "Are you lying to me?" Thaddeus said in a humble tone, explaining that he had done it to make Serafina feel sorry for him and had no choice but to act that way. Under his sweet talk, the two of them grew very close. Thaddeus no longer held back, pointing directly at Seraphina's stomach and telling me and Gwendolyn, "Seraphina is pregnant with my child, Gwendolyn. What does it matter if you don't want to have my child? There are many others who would be willing to help me." "Alastair, how does it feel to be deceived?" I didn't answer, only seeing Seraphina desperately signaling to Thaddeus, who eventually covered his mouth. "Thaddeus, didn't I tell you not to tell Alastair about this? After the divorce, I don't have a single penny. How am I supposed to raise a child?" At that moment, Thaddeus's expression darkened, and he gripped my collar tightly, revealing a furious expression. "Alastair, you're lying to me." I slowly prized his fingers open, walked over to Seraphina and pulled out a medical report. It was the diagnosis of Seraphina's terminal cancer. "Seraphina, look at this." Seraphina's tears fell onto the diagnosis report. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the thin A4 paper. "Alastair, you're lying to me, aren't you?" Even at this point, Seraphina refused to believe it. I firmly denied it. "If you don't believe me, go to the hospital for another checkup." I turned to look at Thaddeus, who was standing there in shock, and tried to signal to Gwendolyn with my eyes that it was her turn to speak. Gwendolyn smiled slightly and said, "Thaddeus, my company didn't go bankrupt. It just encountered some minor issues. I never expected to see your true colors." At least that was worth it. Thaddeus was stunned by the consecutive blows and couldn't react in time. As Gwendolyn was about to get into the car and leave, Thaddeus rushed over and blocked the car door. He urgently said, "Gwendolyn, listen to me. It was Seraphina who deliberately seduced me. I truly love you. What about us getting back together?" Before Gwendolyn could react, Seraphina angrily punched Thaddeus. "Thaddeus, how could you say that? You were the one who contacted me first." Thaddeus didn't back down, pushing Seraphina to the ground, her palms scraping the ground and leaving several scratches. Seraphina looked dazed, almost in tears, reaching out her hand toward me. I just raised an eyebrow and walked straight toward my car. Seraphina, seeing that I was ignoring her, hugged Thaddeus's leg and said, "You can't leave. Everything that happened today is your fault. I want you to take responsibility." This argument was quite interesting. Gwendolyn and I exchanged glances and smiled, both knowing what was going on. This was just the beginning. Seraphina was about to face her challenge. My life went on as usual, just without Seraphina, and I didn't feel too uncomfortable. Long before we divorced, I had packed up all of Seraphina's things and sent them away, and I had also changed the door lock's password. Today, while I was at a meeting at the office, I received a call from the security guard, who told me that Seraphina had gone to my house again. I hurried home, thanking the security guard as I passed by, because I had asked him to notify me if Seraphina came again. When I entered the living room, I saw Seraphina directing workers to pick the lock, with Thaddeus standing beside her. I raised my eyebrows and stopped the locksmith from picking the lock without permission. "What's going on?" The locksmith pointed at Seraphina and angrily said, "You're being too much. You almost got me into trouble." As the locksmith muttered and left, Seraphina asked me, "Alastair, did you really do this?" "I just wanted to pack my things." I knew what Seraphina was up to. All the money in the house was in the safe, and I knew what she was thinking. "Don't bother, Seraphina. The safe isn't in the house anymore." Seraphina was caught off guard by my words, her cheeks flushing red as she tightly gripped Thaddeus's hand. The two of them grew closer again. Seraphina deliberately waved their intertwined hands in front of me. "Alastair, I really thought you went to the hospital for a checkup, but there's nothing wrong with you. After leaving me, you're just a lonely, pitiful person. Is that okay?" Seeing the arrogant Seraphina and the slightly uneasy Thaddeus, I understood. "Oh, really?" I said softly. "That's truly congratulations." The police approached Seraphina and Thaddeus and said, "Good evening. Someone reported you for burglary. We need you to come with us," before they were taken away. I heard Seraphina grinding her teeth. "Doing more bad things will only bring you trouble. If Serafina doesn't believe me, her days are numbered. I went to work as usual. A few days later, in the company break room, I heard someone praising Thaddeus nonstop. Thaddeus is so generous. He gave me a designer bag. I'll definitely vote for him this time. Yeah, I also received a necklace from him. Although Alistair is indeed very capable at work, I think I'll support Thaddeus too. I opened Serafina's chat history. Lately, I noticed Serafina was living quite the life, traveling all over the place. She was also wearing brand new designer clothes. She sent me photos every day to show off. Where did she get the money? I thought of a possibility and called my mom to ask if she had given Serafina any money. Yes, I remember we agreed to give her $1 million once she got pregnant. She told me she wanted to start a small business and asked me for a loan, so I gave her $5 million. The amount was quite large, so she asked me to keep it a secret from you. I had her write a promissory note. I rubbed my temples, regretting that I hadn't told her sooner that Serafina and I had broken up. Mom, I'm divorced. And the child Serafina is carrying isn't mine. The call ended. Given my mom's temper, she must have gone to find Serafina by now. I called Serafina to ask where she was. Half an hour later, Serafina finally answered the phone. What's wrong? Alistair, who's been so busy, finally remembered me. Alistair, you haven't contacted me these days. Are you finally starting to miss me, Serafina? Did you ask my mom for money? Where are you now? Serafina's distressed cries for help came through the phone. She was smart and desperately told me her address. When I arrived, Serafina was already lying on the ground. Thaddeus's face was covered in wounds. I know my mom well. She wouldn't let this go easily. However, judging by the state of Thaddeus and Serafina, the people my mother brought with her had shown some restraint. I didn't feel rushed anymore and walked over slowly. My mother glared at me disappointedly. We'll talk later. Serafina, Thaddeus, give me back the money. $5 million, not a penny less. My mother threw the IOU in Thaddeus's face, but her words were directed at Serafina. Such a pretty boy, not even as good as my son. I don't understand what you see in him. Serafina cried with red eyes and told my mother that the $1 million was given to her by my mother. My mother was so angry that she slapped Serafina across the face. That $1 million was for my future grandchild. Is the one in your belly it? Serafina didn't say anything. Thaddeus took advantage of everyone's inattention and quietly stood up to head for the door. When I blocked him, he casually said, "The IOU note was written by Serafina. It has nothing to do with me." Serafina felt wronged again and was very upset. She decided to talk to Thaddeus. "Thaddeus, you can't say you didn't spend that money. You spent more than I did. Don't think I don't know you bought things for your colleagues." Thaddeus retorted, "If you hadn't said Alistair wouldn't find out, I could have gotten your money. Besides, don't act so innocent. Aren't you waiting for me to become director so you can get your share? You said yourself it was an investment." The two of them argued back and forth, unable to reach an agreement, just as I was about to ask them for a decision. Serafina suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. She collapsed on the ground. At the hospital, the doctor looked at Serafina's test results and said regretfully, "It's too late. There's no chance for surgery. If we had discovered it a month earlier, there might have been a chance to save her." The sound of Serafina's heartbreaking sobs echoed through the ward. A month ago, it was the day we divorced. Serafina suddenly jumped off the hospital bed and angrily punched Thaddeus with her fists. "You lied to me. You took my medical report. You said I was fine before. You made me borrow money from my mother-in-law. Did you plan all along to kill me so you wouldn't have to pay it back?" Everyone's gaze immediately turned to Thaddeus. Thaddeus's expression was complicated. "Did I force you to do this? This was your own choice. Stay away from me. This has nothing to do with me." Serafina suddenly bit Thaddeus's arm, letting out a painful scream. Her mouth was filled with blood as she laughed madly. "Thaddeus, you can't abandon me. The child in my womb is yours." Hearing the growing whispers around him, Thaddeus began to try to escape. I stood in front of him once more. He looked at me in confusion and asked, "What's wrong? Serafina is treating you like this. And you're still defending her." I whispered, "Pay me back, or I can't guarantee that my colleagues won't find out tomorrow where the money for the jewelry and bag Thaddeus gave you came from." "Alastair, you—" Thaddeus clenched his fists. Seeing the group of people behind me, he took a step back. "I'll hold you responsible for this tonight. I'm only responsible for my part. I won't get involved in Serafina's affairs." After saying that, he glanced at Serafina. "Don't come looking for me again, and don't even think about keeping this child. I won't accept it." He walked away without looking back. The crowd dispersed. Serafina looked up, tears welling in her eyes. She gazed at me with tear-filled eyes. "Give me the money back." My mother was worried I might soften, so she deliberately kept Serafina and me apart. Actually, she didn't know that I had long since lost any feelings for Serafina. Serafina didn't care either. She knelt down in front of me and hugged my legs. "Alastair, I know I was wrong. Can you save me?" Hearing Serafina's voice, which made me feel uncomfortable, I felt a surge of disgust. I moved my legs, trying to push her away. "Give me back the money. Whatever amount it is, just give it back. Keep the jewelry and handbags you haven't sold yet." When we divorced, Serafina didn't take anything with her. Over the 3 years we were married, she bought a lot of clothes and handbags, spending almost half of my salary. However, I didn't ask her to return any of it. "Alastair, do you really not love me anymore if you take all these things? How am I supposed to live? I don't want to die. Without money, I can't afford medical treatment." I dragged my mother out of the room. "That has nothing to do with me." As I left the ward, I heard Serafina's heartbreaking sobs, but I felt nothing inside. That night, I did receive the transfer from Thaddeus, $30,000. Thaddeus had spent a lot of money to secure this director position. It was only fair. Tomorrow is the day of the vote. The vote only counts for half. The other half depends on the superior's opinion. Why is Thaddeus so certain he'll be better than me? I fell asleep with a sense of relief. The next morning, Isolde stopped me at the office door. "Let's talk later. I have to go to a meeting now." This meeting concerns a position change. Saying I'm not nervous would be a lie. Isolde didn't move, even closing the office door and pulling the curtains shut. I was confused and about to ask her what she was doing when she suddenly called my name. When I reminded her to use the proper title, she closed her eyes briefly and quickly said, "I like you. I know you're divorced. Can I be your girlfriend?" This statement left me speechless. Just then the office door opened. Thaddeus was clapping, followed by a large group of people. I couldn't understand how Alastair could be so popular, having a job yet still eyeing other opportunities. I ignored Thaddeus's mockery and focused on the front desk, who seemed hesitant. The front desk staff looked awkward and said, "Alastair, your wife is here. She's downstairs in the company building. She says you left her and the children. You should go see her." A crowd followed me downstairs, including the boss who was supposed to decide whether Thaddeus and I would get the job. Serafina was sitting on the sofa crying. When she saw me come down, she came over. "Alastair, I didn't want to come to the company to find you, but I really had no choice. I can't afford the hospital bills. I also had an abortion. The doctor said that if I continued with the pregnancy, it could endanger my life. I can't risk my life like this. This was an act of desperation. I hope you understand and don't get angry." Suddenly, I felt many people's strange glances. Thaddeus pretended not to recognize Serafina and walked up to her, saying, "You must be Mrs. Whitfield, right? You probably don't know, but your husband has other connections in the company." Thaddeus glanced at Isolde, seeming to imply something. Serafina gripped my arm tightly, her anger evident, seemingly forgetting she was acting. "HMPH, Alastair, I told you there was something between you and Isolde. I knew you were secretly together." Whispers began to circulate among the crowd. Thaddeus seized the opportunity to express his thoughts to the nearby leader. "Gentlemen, to be a director, One must not only be capable but also of good character. I believe Alastair is not suitable for this position. Thaddeus gave a subtle nod to a vice president. The vice president cleared his throat and said, I think it would be better for Thaddeus to take on the role of director. What do you all think? As soon as he spoke, there were several voices of agreement around him. I looked closely at the people who spoke and noticed they were all those who had received gifts from Thaddeus. Thaddeus was very pleased with himself, completely unaware that several senior leaders had remained silent since the beginning. I went to find Seraphina, but she didn't look at me. Thaddeus was urging the highest-ranking leader to make a decision. Isolde gathered her courage to explain, it's not like that. Alastair and Seraphina have already divorced, and it's actually just me who likes Alastair. He hasn't agreed to anything yet. Thaddeus spoke harshly to Isolde, saying, the decision of our leader has nothing to do with you, an intern. And since you've already said you like Alastair, of course you should support him. You're so young and already harboring such feelings for your superior. Is there some difficulty at home that's driving you to climb the ranks so desperately? Isolde was so angry she started crying. Thaddeus ignored her emotions and continued to urge the boss to make a decision quickly with a respectful expression. The boss was in a hurry and was about to say something. At that moment, the chairman, who had just finished the meeting, stopped in his tracks. Isolde seized the opportunity, rushed to the chairman and hugged him tearfully, her voice choked with emotion. After a moment of silence, the boss spoke again. Let's assign this task to Alastair. Thaddeus froze when Isolde called him Dad. I whispered, I don't understand why Thaddeus is acting this way with my ex-wife. Besides, the child Seraphina is carrying is yours. Is there something wrong with me? Or is there something wrong with you? Before Thaddeus could respond, I showed everyone the intimate photos of him and Seraphina, along with the recording of Seraphina saying the child in her womb was Thaddeus's. Thaddeus had no way to defend himself. The onlookers began speaking up for me, even those who had once received gifts from him. Thaddeus was fired. He asked me if I had known all along that Isolde was the chairman's daughter. I told him that the position of chairman had already been decided for me, and the vote was just a formality. Seraphina refused to leave. With tears in her eyes, she tried to justify her actions. She said, Alastair, I really didn't want to do this, but Thaddeus gave me $10,000. I was afraid of dying and I wanted to be with you. Please forgive me. Did I make another mistake? Seraphina's crying was getting loud, and it was annoying me. I noticed Isolde watching us from a distance, so I waved at her. Isolde ran over and I took her hand. Seraphina, as you wished. I'm with Isolde now. Please don't disturb my life anymore. After saying that, I walked away holding Isolde's hand. Seraphina cried painfully behind me. Her cries filled with regret and despair. But what does that have to do with me? I don't care anymore. When we reached the company entrance, Isolde let go of my hand. She said, Alastair, I know you said that on purpose just now, and I understand that you haven't fully accepted me yet. Can I pursue you? Actually, I didn't particularly dislike Isolde, but to say I was attracted to her was a stretch. Maybe one day in the future I might be drawn to her, but for now, I just wanted to focus on myself. I nodded and said, all right. Isolde's determination was much stronger than I had anticipated, and she began to actively pursue me. Sometimes I really felt a bit overwhelmed. Isolde prepared a full day's worth of meals for me. Seeing the blisters on her hands, I realized she had made everything herself. Although she's a spoiled rich girl, Isolde doesn't have any of that spoiled attitude. She can complete tasks faster and better than anyone else. To be honest, I'm starting to develop feelings for her. After work one day, Isolde invited me out shopping as usual. I was about to go meet her when she called me. When I answered, her voice sounded a bit unclear. Seraphina's voice was mixed in. Isolde, where are you? The call was disconnected. I could only go to Isolde's house first. Seraphina opened the door. I hadn't seen Serafina since we chatted downstairs at the company that day, and I thought my words had worked. Upon seeing me, Serafina rushed into the bathroom. I suddenly understood what she was thinking. Serafina was someone who loved to dress up. Now, due to chemotherapy, she had lost all her hair. She looked very different. All I saw on her face was fatigue and weakness. I walked into the bedroom and saw Isolde getting out of bed. I asked her why Serafina was there, and she stammered. I was sick today and Serafina came over to take care of me. As I looked at her, Isolde finally spoke the truth. It was Serafina who came to find me. She said that after 3 years of marriage, she knows you best. She taught me how to cook those dishes, and she told me about your preferences. At that moment, Serafina also came out. She licked her dry lips. Alistair, don't be angry with Isolde. I just wanted to be kind to you, if you don't want to see me. I could only think of this way. I know I'm about to leave and I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to make up for it a little. Serafina kept pouring out her feelings. But I wasn't moved at all. However, I understood that she truly felt regret. I sighed. Serafina, don't bother me anymore. Serafina walked away. Isolde cautiously asked if I was angry. I shook my head. She tried to take my hand and I turned mine to hold hers. Let's be together. Don't ask Serafina anymore. Just ask me, the person involved. About my affairs. Isolde was overjoyed. After being with Isolde, I felt much younger. A week later, on my way to work, I passed by the front desk and heard people arguing. Upon approaching, I heard they were looking for Thaddeus. It turned out Thaddeus owed some high-interest loans. These people were there to collect the debt. I gave them Thaddeus's address. I knew Thaddeus was unemployed and must be struggling. I had been keeping an eye on him to ensure his father, who was always drinking, could find him no matter where he moved. A week later, I received a call from the police station. The officer told me 3 things. Thaddeus had died, and Serafina was responsible. Serafina wanted to meet me. I went to find Serafina and asked her through the iron bars, "Why did you do this?" She replied, "Alistair, we ended up like this today. Part of it is my own fault and part of it is because of Thaddeus. Unfortunately, I realized Thaddeus' true nature was flawed. And it was too late. He knew I was dying and still wanted me to take out a loan, figuring I wouldn't have to pay it back after I was dead. Even at this point, Thaddeus was still trying to manipulate me. He threatened me, saying that if I didn't help him, he'd come after you. I know he can't beat you, but I don't want you involved in this mess. I don't have much time left anyway, so going down with someone else might as well be worth it." I remained silent for a long time. Serafina looked at me with eager eyes, as if trying to see through me. After a long silence, the moment of truth finally arrived. As I prepared to stand up, I heard Serafina speak with a trembling voice. She said, "Alistair, I love you." I didn't turn around. Later, I heard about Serafina's passing. I had always known this would be the outcome. The past is the past. I should look forward.